Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Amma ba'da. Habibti fillah. As general advice for the brothers and sisters that are in their various doing talab al-ilm, whether they're doing a program that is rasmiyan, which means like an official program, for example, in the Islamic universities somewhere, or institutes, or other programs in which they're learning learning in a program where they're learning Arabic, maybe, and they're learning Quran, they're learning in the sciences of Islam, various sciences. Or the other alternative is the traditional way, which is studying with the scholars, perhaps studying with students of knowledge, and then scholars, or whatever the situation may be. And the point I want to drive home is that there are benefits to both studies. And by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've had a chance to do both studies, and I have benefited tremendously. And in fact, even I'm doing a third method of study, which is now my PhD, where it's just based on research. So it gives me a chance to go through and do research. So I'm just going to talk about this. It's a little bit different than what we usually do. And we know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, "Man salaka tariqan yaltalmisuhu bihi ilman sahala Allahu lahu tariqan ila jannah." That whoever traverses the path of knowledge, Allah will make easy for him the path to Jannah. So it's very important that your intention is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to lift the jahil from yourself, lift the ignorance from yourself, and perhaps your family, and perhaps your community. So making sure your intention is sound, that's very important. As far as the difference in those studies, because what amazes me, I've sat in some of the Marakis al-Sunnah in Yemen, for example, in Dar al-Hadith Sheher, a limited time in Damaj, and visited other Marakis like Fiyush in Aden, and also Ma'bar, Sheikh Muhammad al-Imam's Markaz. And what I found from some of the students is almost some of them would really belittle the studies at the Islamic University in Medina and say, oh, the students there are like such and such. And me having been in that environment as well, having studied in Medina in a program outside of the Islamic University, which is the same curriculum though, it was a night program. Having seen and been in that Jami'ah Islamiyya environment, having been on the campus many times and knowing many students and attending lectures there and durus and so forth, muhadarat, that I was able to see that some of the things that they were saying were incorrect. And what I mean is, getting more to the point, is that all of those ways of seeking knowledge have benefits. They all have benefits. And the one who is favored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make a gem between them is able to really gain benefit from the various environments. Let me be more specific. For example, what I found in Yemen, the benefits, and I remember one of the first times I met Sheikh Rabi', I went with a student who was a Libyan. We ran into each other in Mecca, and we knew each other from Damaj. He remembered me from Damaj, and I remembered him. And he was living in Saudi, so we went to visit the Sheikh. And the Sheikh mentioned, when he heard that I'd been in Damaj for a little bit of time, aside from saying, why were you there for such a short time, he mentioned that, what he found from the students in Damaj, mashallah, is that they had, been through so many books and so forth, to what, a student in Damaj might, in 2 years, have done more than what somebody had did in the bachelor's program in Jami'ah Islamiyya, as far as covering books. But what I will say after having seen both environments is that though there is some correctness in that statement as far as the material covered, but I would say both of those environments, like I said, have a great benefit. One of the shortcomings that I found in the traditional environment in Yemen, what I saw, is in a lot of those Marrakech, a lot of times, a lot of books you're studying, you might be studying just from students of knowledge. So they might be Yemeni students of knowledge, or Libyan, or wherever they were from, Algerians, or even from the West. And a lot of times they were students of knowledge who were then appointed to teach. So you don't have the same, obviously, the same experience that you do with learning books from the ulema. Okay? But you also had ulema there to learn from too. But what I'm saying is a lot of the way the people received the knowledge was through those, a lot of people received knowledge through those means, from my observations. And you would find sometimes shortcomings because of that, because a student of knowledge, of course, is more prone to mistakes, especially if they're students of knowledge who've never been outside of Yemen. So then all of their seeking of knowledge was limited to certain scholars, and often maybe not even major scholars sometimes. So then it's easy because they would explain from books that were explained by the ulama, and sometimes maybe you're more prone to error that way. And I've recognized this and seen this on more than one occasion when I lived in Yemen. But the benefit of those environments is the seclusion and the ability to cover a lot of material, and the ability to memorize. Limited environment, very strong for those environments. So you'll find a lot of students of knowledge that have studied in Yemen and those places like that, whether it's Mauritania or whatever, very good in memorization. Very strong in memorization. That doesn't mean they're weak in other areas. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that is a lot of emphasis that you see from that. What I found in the experience of being in more Rasmian environments is I found students a lot of times more rounded, meaning that they had studied sciences that, because in a place like Yemen, a lot of times you might pick and choose what you want to study. So then if you're weak in something and you choose to avoid it, then maybe you're not going to study it. You know, if you choose not to study fiqh, you can almost get away with not having durus in fiqh if you decide not to attend, or whatever the case may be, you know, or going in depth, or fiqh muqarrana, you know, the experience of comparative fiqh or what have you. So what I find is in those programs that you have a program. A program means it's a system in place of certain material you're going to cover. So then there's a benefit in that type of organization as well. So that's why I say they all have their benefit, their great benefit. A shortcoming that I saw from students, some of the students, even in Jamiat Islamiyya that I met, I sometimes, because I wasn't a student in the Islamic University, but I studied a little bit in Dar al-Hadith, Dar al-Mahar al-Haram. I did a year in Mahar al-Haram, what my employer allowed me to do. And I did, and also the night program that was like Jamiat Islamiyya. I finished that for the Arabic language and other basic subjects. And then most of my seeking knowledge there was sitting with ulama, various ulama, and I, from Sheikh Abdul Masin al-Abad, Sheikh Ubaid al-Jabri, Sheikh Ali Nasser al-Faqih, Sheikh Ali Tuwaitri, Sheikh Ibrahim Raheli, Sheikh Suleiman al-Raheli, Sheikh Abdul Razak, and many of the ulama there in Medina. And what you find, of course, from the ulama, this is the asl, this is the traditional way. And so when you have that benefit of studying with the ulama, this is something azim, and this is the best by far. However, that doesn't mean you can't come out with shortcomings, because again, you're going to choose the books you study. And maybe you don't find teachers that are teaching certain subjects. I've never had any of those ulama, and nor do most of those scholars that I mentioned teach like fara'id, inheritance and other things. Maybe they specialize in hadith, or they specialize in aqidah books, or they specialize in, whatever the case may be, or fiqh. So those are the subjects that you're going to deal. And if you do that for years and years and years, you may be grounded in those areas, but you may have shortcomings in others. And this is why I say for those students that have the benefit of studying both rasmiyan in a program as well as sitting with a sheikh, then they have the best of both worlds. And Sheikh Ahmed al-Najmi mentioned something similar to this when he was asked during his lifetime, Allah yarhamuhu. And you see that benefit because, like I said, I've met students from Jamiat Islamiyya, and I remember some guys that I met, some brothers, asking me a question about some issues about takfir that I thought was a basic issue related to this issue, but it's because they studied only rasmiyan and they studied what they were given. They didn't really, they chose not to really sit outside their studies in the Jamia. They only did those studies and they chose not to go outside that. So then there were shortcomings from that. So my advice to those students who have that blessed opportunity to be in those environments, to be especially in an environment like Jamiat Islamiyya or in one of the Islamic universities somewhere, to make benefit at least a little bit outside, even if it's 1 hour a week, sit in a dars with a sheikh from Ahl Sunnah and benefit, because that gem is, gives you a whole new perspective. And I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the experience that I've had to even see the difference in different countries, to see the way the da'wah of Ahl Sunnah was spread in the various countries. And that gives you additional insight compared to someone who's been just in one place. And there's just no getting around that. And I can honestly say that I've seen differences. I see the differences in the sloob, the way the ulama, and many factors. And anyhow, without rambling on, I hope that this can be of benefit, and we ask Allah the Almighty to accept our good and forgive our evil. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.